Are all the presenters here? So I see Georgi, Joanny, Simon here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
And Simon's here.
Tim is here, so all of you are here.
I think we can kick off and people will join in if you wish.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for these games and activities workshop. So we have a bunch of things to share today and to discuss with everybody. So I'm just gonna go very quickly over the program. But first of all, I would just like to clarify a few things which are just very good to contextually think of as we listen to the presentations. So the first question is, what is actually a game, right? Because when I was preparing for this, I kind of had that question going around my head. And that if you go through the different definitions of game, there's three elements that seem to be mentioned in all of them to some extent. It's competition, structure, and fun. So as you can see, the definitions are a bit different between the different dictionaries, but you can always find one of these mentioned there. Now, why is this important to us is really the question that is the topic and kind of the theme of this session. Now, if we look at literature on the topic, there's quite a lot about gamification now and the role of games in learning in general. And I found a couple of interesting thoughts on that, specifically in regards to these three aspects. So when we talk about structure, there's a publication of a study from Oxford, which has this really cool quote saying that target language in particular, because this was about acquisition of foreign languages, and target language in particular is produced much better when an activity has a very clearly defined success parameter. So it's very clear what students need to do in order to succeed in the task, which is effectively the structure that games tend to have. Now, in terms of fun, when we delve into neuroscience, there was a study in the Live Journal which talked about what fun actually is and how it affects acquisition of skills. And they talked about it as an excited state, which increases tolerance to repetition. And because of that, clearly we can say that repetitive activities such as language drills, for example, or controlled practice, or any other rehashing of old material is greatly enhanced by fun because it makes people more likely to actually go through with it. And we can observe this in many of the games we use for controlled practice, right? They make it more tolerable and less of a pain, and students are much more excited to do those than just exercises. And finally, the element of competition is probably the one that is a bit more problematic, as we can see from this quote from an Oxford book about, well, specifically English teaching. It's kind of based on what kind of performance we're talking about. So obviously top performers tend to like competition because they win. But we need to remember that competition is not always conducive to the learning process in bottom performers. So people who have lower results or who struggle or who are not as strong as the other peers or just lack the skills or abilities to show that. Because obviously they don't tend to win a lot. And even if we put them in teams, they often are very cognizant of the fact that they are not contributing a lot to the success of the team, which makes competition a tricky element of games. So I want us to focus on these three ideas throughout this session and specifically notice how competition isn't really a necessary component. So it's there and it can be used, but not all games have competition. And that is a very important thing. So this is just for context here. Now, in terms of what we're going to go through today, we're going to have 5 presentations from 5 different speakers. And here's the agenda. So we're going to have Georgi talking about games with young learners to begin with. And then we're going to go through the rest of the program one by one. Okay, so Georgi, if you'd like, I can give you the floor now to tell us. Sorry?
Yeah, I'm starting. I'm going to share something.
All right.
Well, just a second. Yeah, so Sandro talked about games. Yes, and I try to use games as such in my classes, but it's more like activities with the children, okay? Because of the competition part, okay? Most of the things which we do is more like activities, not that many games, but they work, okay? So because of exactly that, you know, everyone wants to win. So the things which typically we use, I'm not going to talk about them in details, it's bingo. Okay, so bingo with the vocabulary, hangman also vocabulary. Most of the things I actually use are vocabulary related, and we all use these things. What I will show you now some of the things I use. Okay, and some of the things I have prepared so that I could probably use. And we'll see what you think about them. So the first thing is a very famous game. Before everything went nuts, I used it a lot in class. Snakes and Ladders. I have this template where I could put pictures. This is for Kids Box 1. Different pictures, as you can see, from the book. Or for Kids Box 2, I even use words. And I'm pretty sure you know the concept here. In groups, the children would play with a die and some figures there. It works a lot for vocabulary with Kids Box 1, for making sentences with Kids Box 2. They managed to do that, most of the students. Now, the idea which I haven't tried, I tried this online, but I want to try it here in my classroom because, with first and second graders, we are here in the rooms. So the idea is that I would project this on the wall, on the board. And
Georgi, we can only see the first slide for some reason.
So that's not. What do you mean first? So this is the first slide, and this is the second one.
Actually, we can see them all.
Some title.
Yes.
Can you? Am I the only one who can see it?
I do see the snakes and ladders.
Yeah, I can see everything.
Yeah.
Two slides, yes.
Okay, so guys, which slide are you seeing?
No, that's fine. Go on.
Oh yeah.
We see everything.
Snakes, ladders,
So
pink.
yes, so this game is really nice and engaging when it's in the classroom, when children could play it in groups. Okay, but now I can't use it. So my idea is that I project it on the board, use the marker for they will have to play it in groups. I haven't tried this one yet. It would take a little bit of time, but the idea is that because I have a template, so I can put just numbers and I have different tasks for the children. And if they tell me what the word is, or different tasks connected to the unit, for example. Also, it's a bit long, but you can always, shorten this thing. So this is the first thing. I have used it a lot before. I have used it online also. It takes a lot of time, but it's fun. Again, kids know how to play it and they want to play it. So this is my first thing which I use. Again, here with Kids Box 2, they can actually, make sentences with the words, not just as here, tell me what the word is. So this is the first thing which I use and it works. The next thing is this. Now, I use this, I started using this, I came up with this idea. It's nothing new basically, but this is new vocabulary, or as a warm-up at the beginning of the lesson. It works really well. The idea is that, and I use this just like I'm going to use it now. So this is from my last unit actually, farm animals like spider and lizard. So what I do is hide it. Okay, I ask the child to close, and this works if, they all have cameras on. Okay, so I hide. They look at the animals. Then I say, okay, Mariah, close your eyes. I hide one of the animals, and they are supposed to say what's the hidden animal. So it worked online very well, and it works now in the classroom also. Simply remove the flashcard from the board so that they can say. And I was really surprised, actually. I thought that they won't like it that much, but they actually liked this thing. So basically, we start each lesson with this thing, with the target vocabulary from the lesson. I hide it, they close eyes, okay, they really like this thing. This is another thing which I use, close your eyes. Okay. Now, the next things, I have them only as written text now. I haven't prepared anything to show you. Again, another thing, I'm pretty sure you have, at some point you have used this thing. It also works. Memory of a goldfish. That's how I found it online. The teacher starts with something. And right now, again, with one of my groups, it's food. So I would start with, my favorite food is chicken. The next child is supposed to repeat my sentence plus add another, vocabulary item. And so on until someone breaks the chain. So also, very funny thing to do. Not competitive, but they try to remember as many words as possible, which is also nice. Also works a lot. Again, warmer at the beginning of the lesson. Another thing is this. I came upon this as an idea, and I was thinking of using it. And then we had something like that in Kidsbox 2. They were supposed to choose from 4 words an odd word which didn't fit the group, and it was really fun. I was surprised how interesting it was for the children. So it's an easy task, to create a group of words, one of which is not actually part of that group. Using again vocabulary from the book. I find this also a nice warmer at the beginning of the lesson. The next one is creating codes. Also in the book we have something at some point where the actual alphabet is substituted by some signs and figures, and the children really liked the idea. So I gave them as homework to create some other words using these codes, and then when they came back here, they would substitute it. That was before, okay, and so that they can find what the word is. What I do now is basically a little bit different. What I do in class is that I show flashcards or other pictures of words they know, and they're supposed to write the word, and they should take only the first letters of the word, and these first letters make the new word, which is actually the target. Okay, they also enjoy that, and I haven't tried it actually, but to ask them to create something like that. Usually it's me who does that. Okay, I give them the hidden message, and they're supposed to, to solve it. So it also works a lot with the children. But the easiest thing is with flashcards. If you could prepare flashcards or some pictures, and they see the word, they write it down, and it works really well. Okay, last thing, story time. It's not a game. Okay, this is not a game, But because I did that online with the children, I read them stories, short stories. You know, it usually took like 10 to 15 minutes. There are plenty of books for age 5, 6, 7. I used one and it worked really well. And it also has an additional booklet with different tasks, which was really nice for the children. It was by Mo Williams. Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. It's a fun name. It works really well with the children. I read the story. I even got them to participate, you know, with some words and guessing some things. And then I gave them, they were supposed to draw some things. I sent, with the chat, I sent a file so that parents could download it. It worked really well. So I intend to do that even here in class. When I have time to read, simply to read a story and show it on the board. And this is for me. I also play different, other games. I told you the bingo. I have some other activities here which I could do only in the room, not online, because that's how I came up with them. But I think I have showed at some point other things also. And that's it from me.
Okay.
Just a second.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Georgi.
Thank you, Georgi.
So we should have time in the end for some questions. If anybody has any, I'll ask you to just write them down or maybe throw them in the chat and we can address them a bit later. Okay, so next up we have Simon.
Yes. Can everybody see my slideshow?
Yep.
Okay. My things are about worksheets. A lot of the time we want to practice grammar and vocabulary, and the books and things, we've got grammar and vocabulary sheets, we've got worksheets or handouts, but they're just not very fun. They're either taken from Murphy's Grammar or they're from the Interactive 4 Grammar and Vocabulary from the teacher's resource pack. And the students look at them and they groan because they're so long and it's not interesting for them. So there are a couple of ideas to make them into sort of more of a competition or a game. The first one is to make it into a pairs race. This is what it looks like in the classroom. So the first step is you've got these, your grammar worksheet, and you'll cut, or the vocabulary worksheet, and you'll cut up the activities so that each exercise is on a new slip of paper. So instead of giving them a whole A4 sheet, you're giving them a small exercise on a slip of paper. I put the slips on a table in the middle of the classroom, all of the slips. And then the students work in pairs and they'll take one slip, a random slip of paper, and they'll work to complete the slip of the exercise as quickly as they can. So all of the students are perhaps doing different exercises in different pairs. And when they're finished with the exercise, they call me and they write their team name on the back of the piece of paper and give it to the teacher. And the teacher quickly checks the exercise. If there's a mistake on the exercise, the teacher just gives the slip of paper back to the students and tells them that there's a mistake somewhere, or that there are 2 mistakes or 3 mistakes, but they don't correct anything. A lot of these things are sort of multiple choice anyway. So if you're correcting things, then you're basically giving them the answer. Okay. And then if it's perfect, the slip of paper is perfect, then the team gets a point and chooses another slip of paper and goes on to another exercise. And then at the end, it's easy to count up the points because they've written their team names on the back of the slips of paper. So every time you've got a paper with the team name on the back, the team gets a point. This can be done online as well. It's much the same with online. So you can use the snip tool. So instead of cutting it with scissors, you're using the snip tool to make pictures of each individual exercise. The students work in pairs again like before, but this time in breakout rooms. And when they're finished with the exercise, they can use the ask for help button in the breakout room to call the teacher, and the teacher can check the exercise like this. And again, if it's not correct, they will continue working on this exercise. Okay, if it's perfect, they get a point and they're given another exercise to do. And there are advantages and disadvantages. One of the things that's good about it is that it's bite-sized pieces. So instead of giving them a whole A4 page of grammar and vocabulary exercises, they're doing just one exercise. And when they finish the exercise, they get a point and then they do another exercise. They have a motivation to do work quickly and correctly, because the more exercises they do, the more points they get. But also if they're not correct, they get sent back to them. They have to do them accurately as well. Yeah, the pair work activity makes it more communicative. They're talking to each other, explaining to each other why this is right or why it's wrong. And it allows stronger students to help weaker students as well. Because if there are mistakes, you're giving it back to the students. This means that there's a chance for peer correction, right? Or self-correction. And it can be timed as well. Instead of, one of the problems with these grammar worksheets and things is that the stronger students tend to finish them very quickly. And the weaker students end up spending a long time and being halfway through by the time the strongest students has finished. So with this activity, you can tell them, oh, whoever has completed the most points after 15 minutes, they're the winner. And they'll continue doing activities for 15 minutes, and then you'll stop and count out how many exercises each student has done. Disadvantages is that strong students can dominate, especially if in pair work. You'll end up with strong students doing all the work and the weak student not doing very much, perhaps. Okay, you can be careful with how you pair students together, maybe. And it can be difficult to check the work quickly, especially online. If you've got a large group of students and you've got, say, 7 pairs, and everybody is saying, I'm ready, ready, check mine, check mine. And you've got 7 people at the, it can be difficult like this. Okay. My next one is the same sort of grammar activity, vocabulary activity worksheet, and you can make it into an Among Us game. If you know Among Us, it's a game that students are playing on their phones. Most of the rules, it's a little bit complicated perhaps if you don't know the game Among Us, but your students do know the game Among Us. So if you explain to them that it's like Among Us, most of your rule explanation is not necessary anymore, because it's the same idea. So in class, you're going to prepare slips of paper saying either crew or imposter. And you're going to hand out the roles to the students. So some students will have crew and some students will have imposter, and it's a secret. And they're not supposed to tell anyone who they are. And they're again going to work in pairs. This time, the crew get 1 point for each correct answer that they write on the exercise. And the imposters get 2 points for every mistake that they can make. But they're working together, right? So they will be arguing about what the correct answer is. And the imposters are going to be trying to persuade the crew members to make mistakes. And the crew members are going to be going, no, no, that's wrong. Blah, 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 blah. After the exercise, they guess whether their partner is a crew or an imposter. If the imposter is found, if they're trying to make too many mistakes and they're too obvious, and their partner goes, here's the imposter, then they don't get any points. Okay? And this is to stop them from just being silly and making mistakes all the time. They're not going to get anything from the exercise if they're making mistakes all the time. And if the crew member wrongly accuses someone, they get no points, to stop people from just saying, he's the imposter all the time. Okay, and then you can check the answers as a class. And the students calculate their own scores. So every sentence in the exercise that's correct means a point for the crew, and every mistake means 2 points for the imposters. Okay. And then you can hand out new roles, take the slips of paper back, and do it again for the next exercise with new imposters and things. Online, it works much the same. You can write in the chat box whether people are crew or imposter, direct messages so that nobody can see. The same rules. And they'll do it in breakout rooms in pairs. It's clear?
Yep.
Yes. Most of it is the same. And you can do it again. Pros and cons for this one. Okay, this one stops weaker students from relying on stronger students to do all the work. If they're in pairs, like from the first activity, you can't have weak students just sitting there and waiting for the strong students to do everything for them because they don't know if they can trust the strong students' answers, right? Maybe the strong students is lying to them or trying to get them to make mistakes. It's fun for students. The students really think that this is a game. Again, there are bite-sized rounds, so it's not a whole sheet, but they're doing exercise by exercise. And the teacher can only use 1 or 2 imposters if you want. You can have a class of 14 students, and on your slips of paper, you can make 10 of them crew, which means they're just trying to do the exercise like normal, and then only 1 or 2 imposters, which still makes it feel like a game. But most of the students are just doing the activity like they would normally. The teacher can choose who the imposters are. You can make strong students imposters or weak students imposters. Students who usually dominate, perhaps, you can make them imposters. Okay, and the imposters will end up focusing on common errors so that they're not detected and things. Okay, they're peer correcting as well because they're checking whether their partner is lying to them all the time. They're not just trusting them. It can be slow to check and review though. Okay, this one with the imposters and crew, maybe it sounds quite complicated to explain to students, but in all honesty, because they know this game Among Us and they have imposters and crew members and they know the roles and they know what the imposter is supposed to sabotage in the game, a lot of the explanation is done for you. Do I have time to do something else? No, probably not. Do you have any questions about those things? There are lots of ways that you can do these with grammar and vocabulary worksheets. So I think the key things are to have some sort of point system, and the points don't necessarily have to be points for correct answers. They can be something funny, something fun. And also to break it into smaller elements rather than to have a whole great big long worksheets. I am done if there are no questions. If there are questions, you can ask later.
Oh, actually, Simon, I just came up with a question. What happens if the imposter is found at the very beginning? Aren't they idle for the rest of the activity?
No, so I don't let them, they wait until the end of the exercise before they're allowed to call a meeting or nominate. So they complete the whole exercise together as a pair. Right. And then afterwards, when they're finished, they then get to say if they think the other person is imposter or crew.
Okay.
Go on, question 2.
Yeah.
Does everybody want to be an imposter, like in the game?
Yes, of course. Yes. I mean, it's fun to try and make mistakes, no? And some of the students are awful at it and they try and make mistakes with every single question and they get found out and they get 0 points. And some of them are ever so clever. Like they're waiting for their partner to say all of the answers and then they're copying them down, but deliberately with spelling mistakes. So that then they get points for the spelling mistakes and things.
Cunning.
Very good.
Cunning, yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions?
That's an amazing idea. I love it. I'm going to try it.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, I like it too.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Simon. So amazing idea, I think, with Among Us. And also, yeah, the worksheets. Notice how easy it is to adapt them. So you don't need to do anything fancy, really. Okay, thank you. So next up we have Giovanni. It's your turn, I think.
Yeah. Okay, just 1 second. Just show my presentation. Okay, so I prepared a few activities that you can use with your exam preparation classes. I'm teaching CAE this year, but of course you can use these activities for several levels. Right, the first one is speaking hexagons. The aim is to practice part 4 speaking. In my personal experience, the students have trouble with providing long enough answers during the speaking part of the exam, and generally the textbook does not provide any particular fun activity to practice this, apart from the regular questions. So this is a way to gamify it a little bit, and also shift the focus on the fact that they need to try and involve their partner as well when they do this. How does it work? Well, basically you just divide your class into small groups of 3 to 5 students. I'll explain why you need 3 at least. And they all start from these gray hexagons here. And they move across the board from start to finish, so from top to bottom, as you can see here. And moving along the board, you can see that they move to these numbered hexagons, which correspond to a list of part 4 questions that they might be asked in the exam. They just roll a dice at the very beginning of the game to decide who goes first. And there is a student who keeps timing with a stopwatch. And you can negotiate with the students at the very beginning of the activity. For example, what would be the minimum length in terms of seconds that they need to give an answer to the question, and their partners time the question. And if they go over the time, then they need to signal to the student, to their partner, that they need to ask their partner about their opinion, right? So maybe it's a good idea also to supplement with some agreement and disagreement reference sheet on the side, which is what I did basically. And yeah, so the only material that you need is this virtual board, which you can share with the students as a picture. You put them in breakout rooms. One of the students shares the board and they can play along it. Of course, you can adapt the part 4 questions depending on your level. If you want, I can send you a file just so you can have an idea. But basically, it's just like pick different questions on different squares and numbered accordingly. Okay, as you can see, no one student is going to answer to the same question, right? Because they're totally scrambled. So it creates a lot of variety. They will discuss different topics and they won't be, let's say, bored, discussing always the same topic. This is a way to gamify word formation. Okay, simply another board game, but this is a more classic type of board game. The instructions are here. Works exactly like a typical board game. They land on a square and they need to think of as many possible variations for the word that they have here. If they land on a special square, they just need to follow the instructions, and they have to get to the finish. Okay, they can keep score themselves. Okay, and finally, both Quizlet and Kahoot can be used in class, apart from the classic live game. What I did, especially to do some quick revision with them, was to prepare 3 challenges, one after another, on grammar and vocabulary. Eric has prepared all of these, so you don't need to prepare them yourselves. You just open the online supplements and create the challenges from there. And what you do is you divide the students into 2 different groups, nominate a captain, that's the person who's going to be in charge of clicking on the correct answer. You put them in breakout rooms without a time limit, and you send the captains the link to the Kahoot challenge. And you can just simply stay in the background and follow how many answers they still have to, how many questions they still have to answer. And finally, you can round up by simply going over the Kahoot report and yeah, and just go over the wrong answers the way you would normally do with them. Yeah, okay. I don't know if there are any questions about the Kahoot in particular, how it works in practice. I don't know if I made myself clear enough with it. With Quizlet, you can do the same. You just send them the link to the, you first have to create the teams while you're in the main room. And you have to manually assign the students to the rooms, depending on how Quizlet has arranged the teams. And the only thing is that they can't see at what point the other team is if they're winning. But I think that's actually good because they don't get stressed because they're lagging behind or anything. They'll just do their best until the end of the game, until the winner will pop up on their screen. There is something that's even easier, which I didn't include in this presentation initially, but I just remembered. You can do a very simple game using your whiteboard. Let me just share the whiteboard. Yeah. You can simply draw a 6 squares like this. Okay, I'm doing it very quickly, but you can be neat. Just number them. Great. Oops, sorry. I need only 6 squares, not more. Okay, 4 and 5 and 6. Right, and you can take word stems from word formation part 3. You know, the words on the side, and just enter them in the squares. For example, I don't know, the word emit or whatever, and then organize the teams in a way that they have a person who needs to come up with as many variations of these words. You can just write a few words here behind around the board so that as the ones in the squares get used during the game, you can just continue by moving the new word here. For example, if a student has used the word emit, I don't know, you just put this one here in this square instead of emit, and you can just remove emit and continue playing like this. Okay, this is a basically almost zero preparation instead of the board game that I showed you before. Okay, that's it. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
That was great.
Thanks.
Johnny, I have one question about the Kahoot tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
So you do them in the context of one lesson, right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever done them through homework?
Yeah, of course. I mean, actually, I started using the assignments as homework themselves, but I think it's more engaging if they actually cooperate during class time to win in their teams. And that's why, I mean, I do a combination of the two. I use them in class if I want, for example, a quick revision before a test. That's really useful. But I also assign them as homework, yeah.
Yeah, and you can totally also kind of the narrative of the tournament can be translated into homework as well, because that gets them more excited about doing it. So seeing how they compare to the others.
Yeah, but personally, in my experience, they prefer playing into teams rather than you know, one for free for all kind of mode.
True. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? No. All right. Well, thank you very much, Johnny, for those ideas. And next on we have Simo.
Okay, guys, let me just share my screen. Now, first, in the chat, I have given you a site. This site, I mean, I have shared it in a previous presentation, but now you're going to see more of a demo of all those games. I have created up until 90 around now. A lot of them are published. They are for the first term of the Kidsbox 1, Kidsbox 2, PowerUp 2, and PowerUp 3. So right now I'm going to show some of them to you. I mean, many of you have seen them probably if you clicked on the spam emails that you got from the forum that I shared. But basically, these activities are great because first they are interactive. We have also games, not only activities, and they can be used either as follow-up activities in class or as refreshers, revision, or if you assign them for homework, they can be a great way to revise things or, for example, for a holiday homework. Now, First, I'm going to start with some games because the theme of this session is games. We are going to start with Maze Chase. Basically, first I'm going to show you the game and then how easy it is to make one. So many of you may know this is like Pac-Man. Basically, in the past, you have some pictures and a word, and the word is uncle. So here with your arrows on the keyboard, you basically move this animal and we have to find the uncle. Now, this is great because students really like it. And if you want, you can make sure they know who the uncle is from the story. These pictures, I cropped them from the Power Up book, but you can use basically any kind of picture. And here, you can make sure that you can increase the difficulty or lower it. If you have lower level students, you can basically increase the time or increase the lives they have and so on. Now, this looks quite nice. How do we make one? Basically, let's create a new activity. Let's just find, where was it? Maze Chase. Now, here you have to just write the question. Pretty much, for example, if we want the word uncle, and here you can either paste the picture from the student's book or you can search. For example, you can click on uncle and you find this picture, for example. You click on it and it will put it here. You can write then mom, aunt, and so on. And let's just try it. Okay, and this is the correct one. Sorry, I forgot to mark it. This is the correct one. When we click save, the site does everything for us. We just have to title it and we have this activity already. And right now you can see that your Pac-Man, or in this case, Maze Chase, probably to avoid copyright, is ready. And you can basically play it. All of the activities are done in the same principle. You just have to fill in the template with the questions and it is done. Now, let me show you some other games. We have Balloon Pop here. This game is about grammar. Here you have to just pop the balloons and that's it. I mean, you have this train that is moving and here are your words. And here, this is about superlative form. So we have tall and we just pop the balloon and it gets here. And the students just love it. I mean, these games are played quite a lot. I assigned them for Christmas homework and I mean, they really like them. There is even high score if you want here, but they have to do it at the end. So here, let's do another one with longest. Here we have youngest. And you can have a lot of levels and they can continue basically until they are bored with it, or you can set up an end. For example, here I put it at 7 levels. So at level 7, it is done. Now, let me show you another activity that's called airplane. Here, this. Here with the arrows, you are basically maneuvering an airplane. So here you have I am not to music now. And you have words and you have to go with that plane to the correct one. So for example, here we have listening and we go. And now suddenly in the clouds, another one has appeared. Here he is today. So we have to use working and it is done. The template is the same. You just write the correct and the wrong answers. And this is how they basically know that it is, I mean, it's very easy to do this type of game. Here you can see that my students really love that game. They even decided to do the leaderboards here and you can see their score. Okay. Oh, another game that we have is called Whack-A-Mole. You have probably seen this one. This one is mainly about spelling because I used it with vocabulary. So we have the mouse and you have two ones. One is the correct spelling and the other one is the wrong spelling. So we hit the correct one and this gives us a point. And this is done with 5. So here they have time. And they have to hit as many correct ones as they can see. For example, Monday, Wednesday, they are correct. Sunday is correct. Saturday is correct. But here, another one. This one was easy, but usually there are more that are wrong. Let's see the next level. You can see more holes in the ground. For example, Saturday is correct, Friday is correct, but Tuesday, Sunday, but here, Thursday, this is not correct. This is a wrong spelling. So if they hit that, they don't get a point. And Wednesday, Tuesday, Sunday. Then we have Wednesday again. And here you can basically, you can increase the levels or the speed. For example, you can make it quite fast if you want, if your students are older and they can actually do it, and so on. And the template, it's pretty much the same here. Here, this one is correct, this one isn't. This one is correct, or it's not. Actually, I made a mistake here. Now, about the activities that we can play in class. Well, let me show you something. First, we're going to start with some game show quiz. Basically, this is quite a hit. Oh, this is just interactive. I mean, it's like a normal quiz, but it's interactive and you can use pictures. And basically, it's great for their attention because they are interested. For example, the balls, the cube. So here they have time and you nominate, for example, a single student and they, for example, say that it's below the cube. And that's the correct answer. And right now they get 100 points. And you can assign that for homework or do it in class if you nominate the students. And I usually make them like short games, for example, 5 or 6 questions so that we don't take too much time. Okay, another type of activity that we can use is matching pairs. Just let me find one. Here. There are different themes. So for example, I used this one for Halloween and it had this spooky theme with the schools and so on. So here, basically they have to find the pairs. And a rock, we have a lake. So this is not. And basically you nominate them and tell them to tell us. And I mean, you know the game. We have that type of games in the Power Up books that can be played in the interactive version of the Presentation Plus software. Another type of game that we can play is called Matchup. This is similar, but here we can also use text. This one is also spooky. So here you have these questions. Basically, why are they wearing clown costumes? And here are the answers. So you have to basically put this in the correct place. And for example, the answer here would be because they're going to a party. And you have to basically put all of these in the correct places. And when they are ready, I mean, you nominate the students and you can, after that, submit to see if they are correct. Another type of activity that they really like is Hangman, but this time it's a little bit more of an interactive version. Again, made based on the material and the target language they are studying. So here we have the word and they have to basically tell us the letter. This is a great revision about the alphabet. And for example, you do it with the words. And for example, if they pick a word, the letter that's not here, let's say D, their lives slowly go away. I mean, you can control again the lives. For example, I allowed them 7 guesses here because in some groups where I have more students, if I have a weaker student there, I mean, they make mistakes and that's bad. If they have, for example, only 3 lives and they quickly finish the game without revising the word. Another activity that we can play is the image quiz. This is slightly different than the game show quiz. Let me just find one. Image quiz here. Now, after this time here, you press the button where you know the word. So for example, I play this with the whole group. They just watch, and the first one who recognizes the word, they just tell me to stop, and then they say the word. So when they know what this is, they just tell me, for example, and we press the button, and I press it, and then now they have to guess what is that. Is it a cook? Is it a nurse? Is it a treasure or a pirate? And here we can pick cook. This is another activity they can do. Now, let's go to Power Up 3 activities. Here we have Enjumble, which is pretty much what you can play in the textbook as well. Basically, you have mixed words and you have to put them in the correct order. For example, shall we design some props? And they tell you the correct sentence, and this is how it's done. Let's switch to another activity. We have true or false. This is called true or false because they have to just pick true or false. Basically, it's quite easy. So what's it made of? Is it true or false? And we, for example, we say that it's true, but it is false because here we have to have an apostrophe. The next one, it's made of silver. Let's say false because we didn't have the apostrophe. And basically, this is how you check if they can, if they know the grammar or so on, or if they can spell. Another activity that we can play is called group sort. Let me just find it. So here you have different words and you have to basically make sure that they recognize the infinitive, past simple regular, and past simple irregular. This is for Power Up 3. These are slightly older students. So you use throw here, for example, sailed here, learned here, and so on. And you get the gist. But I mean, you can nominate the different students in the group, and it's interesting for them because it's something different than what you usually do in class. Another activity is missing word. Let me just find it. Here, they have to just pick the word. My grandma isn't as tall. And they pick as, for example. And we see that it is the correct one. And you can have multiple of those. Another activity would be find a match. Let me just find it here. Here you have the words. This is about vocabulary. And when you see the picture here, you can see, for example, that it's shout. And they tell you that it's shout. And then we go to the next picture. You nominate a different student. And they, for example, can say that this is, let's say, hop or jump. Hop. Okay. Another type of activities, this one I play with the younger students, the Kids Box 1, is open the box. Here, basically you have different boxes and you tell the students, tell me, for example, pick a box, and they say 2. And here you have she is, and they remember that Mrs. Star is beautiful, so they say beautiful, and this is how you play the activity. Another activity that I do with them, this is about alphabet, is a random wheel. For example, when you want to revise the alphabet in the beginning, you basically spin the wheel and they have to tell you the letter. We spin it. And now they have to tell you which is this letter. And you nominate the students, they take turns, and that's how you revise the alphabet. Okay, I shouldn't take much more time. I have only 2 quick activities. In Kidsbox 2, we have word search. This activity is great. It's basically like any other word search. Here they have the words and they have to find them. And then with the annotate tool in Zoom, you can make them circle them on the screen. I mean, it's not necessary for you to basically click them here. Yeah, like David just annotated. And the last activity that I can show you, it's called anagram. Basically, I mean, you know what it is. It's just interactive version of it. So here you have the word and they have to basically fix the letters. And it is done. So these are the activities that I have used, but there are 36 different templates. Up until now, I have used probably around 20 of them, not all of them, but yeah, I mean, you can experiment and it's quite nice. So do you have any questions?
Is the account free actually? That's what somebody asked you in the chat box.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, the free account, you can create up to 5 activities. If you have a paid subscription, which is 4 leva per month, you can create unlimited ones. And for 6 leva per month, you can use all 36 templates. But the good thing is that you can stop the subscription when you want. You pay for 1 month and then you can stop it. For example, I pay 1 month, I create all my games for the term, like 90 games in this month, and then I just stop it. So for leva, I created basically 90 games, which is amazing.
Yeah. Or you can use his account. You can go to his account because his games are free. So
yeah, you can use my games as well.
It's Zaharev. Yeah, I just found it. So you go to his account and you can use the same games.
Yeah, or all my games are linked in the forums. If you go to here in the forums, in the Young Learner Schools and Teenage English Schools, here in the Kidsbox 1 online resources, Kidsbox 2 online resources, Power Up 2 online resources, in all of these threads, you can see how my games are. I mean, we have direct link for every unit for each of the games.
He has given a lot of links, so yes, you can use them.
Okay, this is it from me. Sandro, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Sima. Just to add to that, to the complete series, I'm also adding a lot of WordWall games. So yeah, you definitely don't need to pay because you can just use the ones already created. But even if you want to pay, WordWall is the cheapest one currently, much cheaper than Kahoot or GameKit. So, and also Simo said you can pay just once to create a bunch. Okay. So what I would like to talk about to conclude the session is kind of like a nice little final thought on all of these activities, because it's something that goes a little bit more as a overarching concept. So I want to talk about long-term progression and how it's connected with instant gratification in specifically digital generations. So Zoomers, Alpha, but to some extent millennials. So we all know that these generations are notorious for being really obsessed with instant gratification and not very good at delayed gratification. And while that's often criticized, there is a positive side to this. Oops. And it's the fact that they have shown to do a lot of very long-term tasks and very long-term commitments based on their satisfaction of instant gratification. So you can see down here, if any of your kids have played things in class, you've probably seen this. Anyone know what game this is?
Mm.
No, it's
Clash Royale.
almost. It's Brawl Stars, which
Something else.
is similar to that, but that's very popular among preteens now and young teens. So it has this typical game progression where you have a point acquisition system. So you can see that they collect points down here. This is the current amount of points. And as they progress through the levels, they can acquire rewards. Like each of these is a reward they know that's coming, a reward they can see their progress towards. And this can take very long, and they can spend hours and countless of very repetitive things just to get these rewards. Okay. And the way this works is that it's a combination of instant gratification and long-term objectives. The game is designed to provide instant gratification for the smallest feats, right? So whenever they gain 10 points, they see a little progression here, which gives them some satisfaction, right? When they get some small reward on the way to the mega box, they get a small reward on the way to the mega box, and so on and so forth. And this is why video games are so addictive and popular for many children. It's because they are capable of providing this kind of step-by-step sense of progress, as opposed to, for example, learning the piano, where nobody really gives you points. You kind of just suck at it for 5 years and then suddenly you're good. So games are very good at communicating progress, right? They have all sorts of mechanisms which makes you feel rewarded, even if you haven't actually achieved your final goal. And this is something we can exploit to get children more motivated to get into the kind of long-term commitment that you have with language learning. So I'm going to show you what I use in this regard. And it's basically a system for allowing them to progress through certain rewards and certain kind of measures of their success in the classroom. So I'm going to show you the simplest format of this that doesn't really use any tools except, well, in my case, just the Google Sheets, so an Excel kind of table. Now, this can be done in anything, really. This is just the form where I chose to do it. So you can see that on top here, we have a progression bar with points. 1,000 points, 2,000 points, and so on. And this progression bar goes all the way up to 30,000 points. And the way this works is that my students, which you can see here across the levels, they acquire these points. So during classes, they do certain things which reward them with points, and they accumulate these points, which allow them to progress through the levels. Okay. Another thing they can do with these points is they can shop in the class shop, where they can buy various things by spending their accumulated points. Now, the important thing about this system being engaging is that they have decided how to set this up. And you will see that between my FCE group and my preliminary group, it's actually a bit different, because the preliminary group have decided to set up a bar where progression gives them a slight increase to their test scores. So the higher they are positioned here, the more their boost will be. Okay, and it's actually a bit of it's a negotiation in their mind, because do they spend their points to buy things they want here, or do they keep their points because they want the test? And sometimes they accumulate points towards the test, they wait for the test, they do the test, and then they spend their points and accumulate them again. So that allows for a certain flow of currency, which doesn't let it stagnate. But the class shop is also something that they have more or less decided themselves. So we went through a process where they chose the kind of rewards that they want. Now the prices obviously I set, but they came up with the idea of making their own game kit. They came up with the idea of making me play with them or against them. They came up with the idea of choosing a topic for the lesson, right? So these are all their ideas that they want, okay? And they are inclined to spend their points and earn their points towards this. Now you'll see the FC has slightly different shop setup. It's a bit more competitive because this group was more competitive as a whole. So they have all these ways to mess up things for the other team, or to help the friends, to get the help of a friend. More focus on getting help in a way, so ask for a hint. This is a hilarious one where they figured out that they want to give me a test, and I've been given a biology test that I failed because of that. So these are the things, and their bar is set up differently as well. because they're not earning bonuses towards their tests, they're earning influence. Now, what this means in our context, if we have certain votes from time to time where we vote, are you going to play Kahoot or GimKit? Which GimKit mode are you going to play? Are we going to read this text or do an exam practice instead? And we tend to vote on those, and influence is kind of the amount of votes you can cast. So you see Maria and Tino here, who are ahead of the group, they actually have more influence in these votes, right? And they can choose to keep this influence or spend it by getting the points. But again, the key here is that this was decided with the group. So, I mean, obviously I offered them various things, but actually the influence thing in this group is something they came up with, right? I didn't come up with that. Somebody made that suggestion and many people supported them. Now, what this does is it really creates a sense of something being built up, and all those repetitive things, including Kahoots, because even Kahoots can get repetitive. They're given a greater purpose because they all can allow you to progress through this kind of narrative, because it's a form of narrative where you're kind of moving forward towards something. Now, the very important thing about making this work is how exactly you award these points and take into consideration the idea of dominant students and students who might not perform as well. Because if you don't take that in consideration, you will just have 2 people here for the rest of the term, while 2 people will be at the end, and like a bunch of them stuck somewhere in the middle. And that can be very demotivating when you see you're so far behind and that you can't earn enough. So what's important here is I have effectively 2 ways to award these points. So obviously competitions work, but you see I've divided it into ranks. So you get a number of points for being ranked in the game, but also for accuracy. Because to be honest, accuracy in stuff like Kahoot is very important. So even if you're not first or second or third or even 5th place on points, if you have 80% accuracy, you deserve something, right?
Yep.
So they receive rewards for their accuracy, regardless of whether they were slower or not. But obviously the faster ones get a bit of an edge. But not always, because sometimes their accuracy is weaker, actually. As you can see, the accuracy rewards are actually higher than the rank rewards. So it encourages accuracy rather than speed in Kahoot in particular. Now, also participation gets rewarded. So being on time, doing your homework. So something that even students who are weaker can easily accomplish, and they should be encouraged to, and they would be, because they will feel that this is their main source of income. So they will be more motivated to do it. And then I have these 4 awards that I tend to give at the end of the week, right? Now this is very useful because you can kind of cheat with this. You can, like, if you feel a student really is falling behind or losing motivation, you can just give them the creativity award, even if they don't exactly deserve it. Because I mean, it's a very vague concept, right? So you can justify it in some way. But normally this would go to students who, for example, during creative tasks were very active or something like that. But again, there's 4 categories which allow a greater range of students to benefit. But most importantly are these improvement awards, which are especially useful to students who are having difficulties. And in fact, they allow students with difficulties to potentially get more, right? So their difficulties enable a new channel of income for them. So best self-correction. So in the self-correction activity, if a student has gone from nothing correct to everything correct, they deserve something. Biggest improvement if they went from like a 40% test to a 70% test. Never surrender medal is an obvious one. So like if you, to reward somebody for really trying, obviously, despite difficulties. And the extra mile award in this case is for extra homework. So people who do their extra tasks based on their remedial schedules, they get this award quite often. And that allows people to keep up with students who just win games, right? And that's the system I use. Now, my system is kind of hard to use sometimes because it has a lot of sources of income. So the way I do it is I write all of this down on paper, and then after the lesson, I put it into the table. But it could be made simpler, right? Like the idea is to have some kind of progression like that. Now, when we talk about platforms for creating this, now there are platforms, but so far I haven't really found anything that is widely useful. So there is Classcraft, which Simon showed to me, and I'm really grateful to him for that. But unfortunately, Classcraft, while very useful for this, it's behind a paywall, which is very pricey, and you can use it without paying, but you need to use it in a very limited way, especially now that they've limited another thing. Class Dojo, I think some people have already been using. It's very nice for young
Yeah.
learners, but it's a bit too simple for older students, but could still be adapted with some creativity. The same with Google Classroom. Now, it's not designed for this at all, but there are very kind of roundabout ways you could set something up there. But to be honest, I haven't tried yet. I've just gotten the idea recently. Now, Hero Learn is something that is currently being developed, but it's not out yet. But it seems to be a very interesting platform, which I will keep up with. And as soon as I see any news on it being usable, I will probably send an email out about it or something like that. But unfortunately, it's still not available. So you can explore these platforms if you want, but to be honest, they're not ideal. So unless you pay for Classcraft, it doesn't work. And the other ones are not ideal. And I personally just prefer coming up with some kind of custom way of doing so. For example, like this kind of spreadsheet. It can be done in a Word document, can be done anywhere. You just need a place where you can show students what they can get and record their points and, you know, have a clear breakdown of what they get their points for. And it serves to be very motivating. Usually something like 90% of my classes are engaged in this. Like there's always a few kids that are not particularly interested, but if you encourage them to come up, because the way I came up with rewards, it wasn't really a group activity, it was a home task. So everybody had to come up with something at home. So even students who in groups were inactive still had to submit something to me. And when they had things here that they wanted, that helped engage them. But sometimes obviously students still might not be particularly interested, but you can't really get everybody with one thing. Okay, well, that's the idea with this one. Any questions? No?
What if they decide to abuse the system? In one of the groups, I think the preliminary ones, there was that they can buy 5 minutes more to the break time.
Mm-hmm.
What if you have 10 of your students use that in the same lesson?
Good point. So, well, that has been attempted, at which point I had to establish the rule that one such power can be used per lesson.
Okay.
But that's a good point, actually, because this is basically a game and it needs to be balanced. So it's good to communicate in advance that you might have to change some things that you didn't account for, right? Because sometimes people might get offended that, you know, but you didn't tell us that we can't do that. I've been saving for this whole time with the idea to get a 60-minute break. So yeah, you might need to like establish rules as you go, as you notice flaws in the system. And that's a good point. Okay, anything else?
How time consuming is this for you as a teacher outside of class and both outside and in class as well? Because do they want to look together as a group and look at this table together within class time?
Well, this table is linked in their course walls, so I don't really show it in class. They just know where to go to see it.
Mm-hmm.
In class, it's not very time consuming because I just note down the things that I need to distribute the points, like the winners of games or just any notes for these rewards. But yeah, it takes a bit more time after class because I need to then distribute the points.
I mean, I can see a lot of opportunities for further learning. I mean, they're using a lot of English to talk about this grid and to talk about the progress, which is great. I'm just wondering if it took a lot of time in class with them discussing who has which points, and can that detract from your lesson aim? That's all.
Well, the first time, yes, but once you establish how it works, they can do it much quicker.
Great.
Usually the way I do it here, so this is a Google Sheets, and if they want something, I tell them to leave a comment in the Sheets, like I want to buy this, and then I just make it happen for them if they have the funds. Okay, well, we have to be coming to a close, so I would like you to complete a little survey on what you've on your impressions from today's meeting. So I'm sending you a link in the chat. There's a suggestion box at the end of it. So if you still have any questions about any of the presentations today, please feel free to leave them there. And well, I will either answer them or forward them to the presenter who might answer them better. But yeah, thank you all very much for coming. And if there's no final questions, I suppose we're done.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, everybody. Great.
Yeah, there was so much to see and think about. Thank you indeed.
Yeah,
yeah. Lovely. I really enjoyed that. All those, most of them were for young learners, but some of them can apply to adults even. Absolutely lovely.
But it's great that we have this shared space now where we can post links to all these things and everybody can use them. So yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yo.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Brilliant.
Everybody.